Welcome to Wholehearted, How to Stay Human in a Crazy World. Friends, I'm Gina Hendrickson. Each week we explore simple, honest practices for living with courage, compassion, and clarity without losing ourselves along the way. If you're feeling the weight of how harsh and divided things have become in the world and in our little corner of it, then you're in the right place for some relief today. Because today's episode is all about living in what I call an outrage culture. And it doesn't take long to feel it, right? The sharpness, the simmering anger, the outrage, the speed at which we judge and categorize and dismiss. Man, we live in a culture that reacts instantly and far too often harshly. Compassion can start to feel, pretty naive. It can feel soft, even weak. But I want to suggest something different today. Compassion may be one of the strongest choices we can make right now. Compassion literally means to suffer with. Not to fix, not to rescue, not to correct, but to stay, to be present, to resist the urge to turn away when something is so uncomfortable. And, that's harder than it sounds, right? Because when someone is hurting, most of us, we want to help solve it. We want to make it better. We want to say something that just ties it up all neatly. But compassion doesn't rush. It sits. One of the simplest definitions I've ever heard is this. Compassion is refusing to dehumanize. I'm going to say that again. Compassion is refusing to dehumanize. Even when you disagree, even when you are frustrated, even when someone has hurt you. Now, hear me on this. That does not mean excusing harmful behavior. I'm not saying that. But it means remembering that no one is truly only their worst moment. Right? I'm going to say that again. It means remembering that no one is only their worst moment. Outrage culture trains us to react differently and to react quickly, to label quickly, to assume the worst, to fire back. But compassion slows us down. It asks, what might I not know about this person? What pain might be underneath this behavior? And what would it look like to respond instead of react, right? Because there's difference there. What would it look like to respond instead of react? Compassion does not mean agreement. It means choosing not to dehumanize. Now, there's a powerful line I come back to often from Scripture that I think embodies this wholehearted living. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. It's simple, but it's profound. Celebrate without envy. Grieve without comparison. Be present without making it about yourself. That's compassion. Not fixing, not competing, not minimizing, just being with. And now here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. Compassion includes people who think differently than you. folk who vote differently than you, who live differently, even completely differently than you. It's easy to extend kindness toward those who mirror us. It is harder when someone challenges us. But if compassion, if it only applies to people we agree with, it isn't compassion. It's preference, right? I've had conversations where every part of me, I'm telling you, every part of me wanted to defend, correct, or withdraw. But sometimes courage does mean speaking clearly. And sometimes strength looks like listening longer than is comfortable. Sometimes strength is asking one more question. And sometimes it's saying honestly, help me understand. Not to trap someone, but to truly, truly understand. That does not always change the other person. And we cannot control what others do or think or believe. We can't. But it can change you. It can change me. It keeps our heart from hardening. Because here's the danger. If we stay in outrage too long, it reshapes us. We become suspicious, short-tempered, closed off. And slowly we start losing the very humanity that we're trying to protect. So compassion interrupts that process. It keeps us open, not naive, not unwise, just open. And there's another layer here, because compassion isn't only outward, it's inward. Many of us are harsher with ourselves than we are with anyone else. We replay mistakes over and over again. We criticize our own limits. We measure ourselves against impossible standards. And then we wonder why we feel exhausted. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence. It's honesty with kindness. It's saying, I'm human. I'm learning still. And you know what? I'm allowed to change and grow. And when we soften toward ourselves in this way, we often soften toward others too. And that's truth. So here's a question for this week. Where is your heart hardening? Where is your heart hardening toward someone? Or maybe toward a group of people? Or toward yourself? And what would it look like to interrupt that hardening just a little? And not by abandoning your convictions, but by holding them without contempt. Compassion doesn't mean you stop believing what you believe. It means you refuse to let belief turn into bitterness. So here's your wholehearted practice. When you feel irritation or judgment rising this week, pause. Pause and ask yourself what might be going on beneath the surface. Right? And you don't have to solve it. Just ask that question and reflect on it. And if someone shares something hard with you, resist the urge to fix it immediately. Try saying, I'm so glad, really glad you told me this. Or, wow, that sounds heavy. And just stay with them. Not fixing. Just stay soft. You know, in a world that rewards outrage, compassion, it is countercultural. It's steady. It is strong. It is how we stay human without becoming hardened. And that matters. Man, thanks for being here this day. Appreciate you. And I'm grateful that we are walking this journey together. So until next time, stay human.